Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the Architecture of Dishonored 2 series. Today in this video we are going to look at the Dust District. We start here in the canal system. We came in on the boat. The canal goes that way. And you might notice that this is kind of silted up a little bit. So this canal hasn't been used for a while. Actually, this is kind of interesting. Karnaca needs workers, that used to say. Karnaca, capital of Sarkonis. Some of this might be informative, actually. Look at this. City of Karnaca food ticket program. Cancelled. Food ticket program. Interesting. They are subsidizing the food for the local workers. But I wanna leave that for a little while. Let me just get out to the surface before we talk too much about that. Oh, the warning. So if you're wondering why this place is called the Dust District, that's why it's called the Dust District. It's called the Dust District because there's a lot of dust, you guys. Alright, let's just wait for the dust to pass so that we can see what's going on out here. There's a lot of dust in the Dust District. Okay, so Shindere Peak is there, right? So there's the mountain, and then there's the valley that comes down, that curves around. The rest of the city is back that way. Can we see the boat here, the Dreadful Whale? I think, is that the Dreadful Whale? Anyway, our boat is somewhere down there. Is that? Oops. Is that the hospital? Mining Institute? Anyway. So we are in the Dust District. This is the mining district on the map. And presumably there are mines in the mountains. And I believe the dust storms are because of excessive mining. So the backstory, I mean, we're not going to see the backstory in this video series, but if you read the books and listen to the audio, to the dialogue, they do say that the Duke of Sarkonis is at war with one of the other nations of the Empire of the Isles. And to fund the war, he has ordered the silver mines to increase production, which they have. And I think one of the consequences of the increased production is that it's producing more dust, and now the Dust District over here is getting overwhelmed with dust. Alright, so first of all, there's these things. Remember we saw these tube things, these wormy things in the sky from the boat, and I said I didn't really understand what these were. I mean, though, I've thought about this for a while. I think they're attempts to control the dust. And maybe before the Duke expanded mining operations, maybe these actually functioned to channel the dust away from the buildings below and then to have the dust blow out into the ocean out there. If you can imagine, like, these channel the wind and channel the dust out. But then, obviously they don't work anymore because we just had a dust storm before and all the dust is just in the valley instead of up in the tubes. So it's possible that these used to be dust control devices and now they don't actually work anymore because they've been overwhelmed or they're broken or for whatever reason. Maybe a lack of maintenance. They're kind of flimsy though, aren't they? I'm not sure if these would actually work in the real world. In fact, I'm pretty sure they won't work in the real world, right? This is way too flimsy. And given the amount of wind, you'll notice that the wind turbines are blowing. There's a lot more wind turbines, we'll talk about those too. So there's a lot of wind turbines in this valley, and I think it's implied that the wind blows down the valley fairly consistently. And given the amount of wind, I'm not sure these things will actually stay upright. Okay, so about these wind turbines, we finally get to see these things up close. And there are a number of things we can say about it. First of all, I think it is actually laminated timber, you guys. Look at that. Look how there's like a line, a shadow line there, and then there's a line there. It kind of looks like... well, you don't really see it there, do you? That's kind of weird. But I think in some of it, you can see how there are several pieces of wood that are kind of glued together, it looks like, because it's not a single piece. Look at this, like a piece there, a piece there, a piece there, a piece there, and a piece there maybe. And then up here there are smaller pieces, and then up here you see how there's like vertical lines? Either they're just kind of bolted together, which is kind of weird, or they're glue laminated timber? Who knows? We don't see any of the laminated timber up close though, so it's hard to say for certain. So it could be laminated timber, or it could just be like pieces of timber bolted together, but we don't see any bolts. Not 100% sure, but it looks like laminated timber. Having said that, even as laminated timber, it's too big because there aren't trees quite that big, even in Karnaca. I mean, there are big trees in Karnaca. In fact, can we see some? I mean, they're like that big. The trees in Karnaca are like that big, which are already huge, right? Which are already bigger than the buildings. But you can imagine like that, and then you make it that. The vertical bits might be okay, because you can like overlap pieces of straight timber. It's the curved bits that really don't make sense, because either you have a flat piece and then you kind of bend it by force, or else you have to like get a tree that's already curved. But no, there are no curved trees, there are only straight trees. So it'll be straight pieces of wood that would be cut thinly, and then you would like steam it, and then you would bend it, and then you would glue it in place, and then try and like make the wood bend into that shape and keep the shape by laminating like multiple sheets of bent and glued pieces of wood together. That's how you would make things like that in the real world, except that you can't make them that big. Like, you can't make, like, you need a ginormous machine, or like a ginormous set of vices to make something that big. Because look, this thing is bigger than the houses. The houses are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories tall, and the curve there is like 10 or 15 stories tall. Even if you could make a piece of curved wood that big, how would you lift it up into place? This thing is like 10 stories tall at the very least, right? So I don't see how that could be possible with wood. I mean, we've never seen construction equipment that big or that strong. So in the real world, wind turbines will be made of steel and fiberglass. So the vertical supports for wind turbines in the real world are hollow steel tubes. And the steel tubes, I think they come in like segments, so you don't have just one enormous segment. You have like a tube, like a cylinder, and then you bolt another cylinder, and you bolt another cylinder. So it's a series of tubes. And then the turbine housing and the turbine blades would be fiberglass. If you look at that, it is implied that those are wooden turbine blades, which again, like given how thin that wood is and how the wind just kind of blows against it, it would just snap the wooden blades if it's made of wood. There's no way wooden blades are strong enough to withstand the wind like that. Unless, of course, we go back to the fictional magical trees that are somehow stronger than steel. Okay, I mean, if the trees are special and magical and stronger than steel, then you can do this. But you can't do this with any wood in our world. Anyway, let's just believe the fiction, right? So according to the fiction of the game, the wood in this world is so strong that you can build basically a mega structure with it. And it will stand against dust storms. We are also underneath one of these wooden structures, by the way. Oh, and if you look out into the city, you see that there? Look, they've put a little wooden like shield in front of that building there, and then in other bits, look, there's another one there, another one there, another one like there. So you'll notice the wind blows down the valley, right? It comes down the valley and it blows that way. And the wooden shielding, it looks like the wooden shielding is to try to protect the buildings from the dust storms, at least a little bit. So all the sharp corners that face towards the wind, they would have wooden shielding. And then sometimes even the walls would be like covered in this wood paneling, and then here there's this wood paneling here, around here, to try to protect the buildings from the dust, I think. Does it work? Not really. The dust still gets through, unfortunately. I guess it helps. I think it helps a little bit, but I don't think it actually completely stops the dust in the end. If you look down there, like that part's got wood on it, and then the next part doesn't, and then I think that's wood there, and then the next part doesn't. So like there's some wood, there's some attempt to protect the buildings from the dust, but it's not quite complete, and it's not quite enough. Anyway, let me continue walking up here. Let me just double check, is there anything else we want to say about the vista here? Not really. The sun's over there this time. Interesting. So this is afternoon. Or, I mean... okay, so like early afternoon sun. Okay. So back here at Dust District, we are like on the other side. Up the hill on the other side of the city now. In fact, in the last video, we were looking at the Clockwork Mansion, right? The Clockwork Mansion is all the way on the opposite side of the city on the other hill over there. Alright, so now we're on the other side. And then we have these buildings here, and it's really not good. This place is completely choked with dust and abandoned. Right, so this is the dust is piled up almost to the ceiling at the back, and it's basically uninhabitable. Right, so this is completely overwhelmed by the dust. Slightly better upstairs. Not too sure if someone might be living there. Somebody has set up a little bed back here, so it's possible that there's enough shelter for you to squat here. Although the dust is coming in, and it's not looking that good, right? Mostly abandoned, and not maintained, of course, because it is abandoned. Aside from the dust and the lack of maintenance, you notice the walls do have wallpaper, but the wallpaper is just the one plain color. So even before the dust destroyed everything here, it's relatively plain and relatively simple. It's not like extravagantly furnished, not like some other parts of the city we've seen so far. So fairly plain furnishing, but all the pieces are there, right? Like it's fully functional. Or it was fully functional. Okay, so to get into the city, there would have been a gate there, except that even the gate into the city is completely jammed with dust. So you can't get into the city that way. We have to parkour our way through the inside of this building, which again is completely jammed with dust. Look at this. Not only dust, but also bloodfly infestation too. Look at that. So things are really not doing well. I've been thinking about this little thing here, this little part. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but there is like a wooden shield at the front here, right? And you notice that the dust in this room, I mean, there's some dust on the floor, but not too much. Whereas further back, there's more dust piling up back here. Which you might think, well, why would there... if the wind is blowing from that direction, why would there be less dust in the front and more dust in the back? Until you come back to here and you'll notice that this has been completely blown open. And there's no wooden shielding on this side. I think it implies that the wood shielding actually slows down the dust accumulation. But because they only like covered the corner of the building and then the rest of the building is still open, then the dust came in around the back and so the building is uninhabitable anyway. I think, but maybe I'm reading too much into it. Anyway, the dust is more piled up in the parts where there aren't any wooden shielding, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, the floors are completely destroyed in here. This is a remarkable amount of destruction. Is this just the dust, or does something else happen here? Like, this is a remarkable amount of destruction. Oh, also you notice the blinds, they're not blinds, what are they called? The shutters. The shutters are moving. The game is telling us that it's really windy out here, right? So the wind is quite strong and it's constantly blowing along the valley, which would be great for the wind turbines actually. Like the wind turbines, I mean, it does make sense why they would build giant wind turbines in such a windy place. It would be great except for the dust. Alright, let's continue moving in. We can't go through there. The gameplay is to make our way up here through this. Used to be a toilet, but even the bathtub is jammed with dust. And then I think somebody was living here until relatively recently, although they were barely scraping by because, I mean, it's just destroyed. But you know, like, in the rooms facing the dust storms, obviously those are doing really poorly, but behind, on the other side of the building, it's kind of okay. The stove is still on, so somebody still kind of lives here, but you can see it's in really bad condition. And you wouldn't really say that this was habitable. The door is falling off the hinges. There is a bed here, and somebody's luggage. Yeah, no, you wouldn't say that this was habitable. This is not suitable for living in, but I think somebody was trying to, nevertheless. Okay, if we get back here, now we're on the other side of that gate which is completely jammed by dust and you can't get through. Back here, we have a little bit more life. Alright, there are some people here, it's not completely abandoned. Actually, how do these people deal with the dust? Let's watch this. There is a dust storm coming. The statues surviving the dust storms. That's interesting too. They don't even care. Oh, no, they care. Alright, they care a little bit. They just stand up and turn around so it's not hitting them in the face. And then, oh, now we're fine, and then they sit back down again. It's just like, they just turn around so it doesn't hit them smack in the face. It's not an easy life here in the Dust District, I can tell you that much. These plants, I think they're somehow still alive. Okay, so this thing, you see how there's a building here that's completely shielded by this wood paneling, this wood shielding. This is Aramis Stilton's house. We are not going to look at this today. This is the next video. We're going to go inside, but I'm just going to show you the main entrance. So there's the door. In the next video, we'll be on the other side of this door, and then we will look at the mansion. The entire mansion is completely surrounded on all sides by this timber shielding here, and I think it mostly protects the interior from the dust. Aramis Stilton is basically the owner of the silver mines, and so he has enough money to protect his own house with this wooden shielding. No one else is quite that wealthy. Anyway, so now Dust District proper begins beyond this wall. Dust District. Oh, there's a map here. That's handy. Let's go look at the map. So we came through from here. So the canal is underneath here. We came up. Oh, the canal. We're like on top of a hill. So the canal comes all the way from sea level, all the way up the mountain to the top of the hill. It's implied that there's a very elaborate and advanced canal system underneath the mountain, but we never actually get to explore it. It's kind of implausible actually, like bringing a boat inside a mountain up a hill. Anyway, aside from that, so this is the gate that was completely blocked. The Grand Guard checkpoint is there. Not sure why they have a checkpoint outside the gate that nobody can get through anyway. Very interesting. Stilton Manor is the place that we will go in the next video. So this part was completely covered by, completely surrounded by the wooden shielding. Over here we have Crone's Hand Saloon. Here we have Valier Street, which is like the main street of the Dust District. It's called Batista District, by the way. And then back here we have an Overseer outpost back here. in the game, the overseers and the Crone's Hand Saloon. The Crone's Hand Saloon has been taken over by a local gang. I forgot what the name of the gang is. Oops. There's a local gang, and then on the other side, so on this side of town, a gang has taken over this territory. And then on this side, the overseers have taken over this territory. And they've evicted and ejected the rest of the district's inhabitants, and now they're kind of camped out here in Valier Street. So that's the situation. We're not going to see those interactions because in order for us to do the video, I've cleared out all the overseers and all the gang members. So we don't see any of them because otherwise they would try to kill us instead of letting us look at the architecture. So they're not around anymore. But that explains some things about those parts of the city. I'm just looking at the map right now, actually. You see these dotted lines? I think these mark the canals. What the hell? Because didn't we come up here? We did. The boat was here, and then we came up this and up the stairs here. There are dotted lines on the maps that show where the canals are. Why? That's wild. I've never noticed that before. And is that like a lock for the ship? That thing there? Wild. The tunnels are drawn on the maps, even though we don't really get to see any of them. Anyway, back to the Dust District. Alright, so this is Valier Street. Crone's Hand Saloon is back there. If we to Crone's Hand, that's the sign there. Valier Street is here, which you might think, oh, this is a pretty normal street, but if you pay attention, you'll notice that this is wood. This is stone, and then this is wood, and then there's a downstairs. Right, they put a wooden barricade there to try to stop the dust, I guess. I don't think it works. And then there's more wood there, and then at this point the wood ends, and then there's a stair there. How curious. So what's going on here is that the street used to come down here. They've put a wooden floor above the street, and they've turned the underside, the original street, into a sort of a shelter for the people who have been, I don't know who, actually, let me just come down here. So there are poor people down here. There's a bit of a soup kitchen. I'm glad somebody's taking care of them. And then back here we have a beggar. There is a shop down here, so some of these shops are still open. Most of them are closed though. And then there's some dudes gambling back here. And then this building is completely choked with dust and abandoned. So I guess these people are just squatting down here with nowhere else to go. There's no beds or anything. I mean, there's a kitchen, so there's food. I don't know where they sleep. I don't know where these people sleep at night. Let me just double check to make sure. Yeah, no, there's nothing down here. Right, so they've kind of put this, well, I was gonna say they put this temporary shelter across the street, but it's not as temporary as you might think because, oops, it's not as temporary as you might think because there are pipes in here. So after they built the wooden flooring or the wooden ceiling across the street, they then installed pipe work into this structure to provide, I don't know what they provide. Does it provide water? What does it provide? I'm not sure what the pipe does. And then they've put in like electrical cables and they put electric lights down here. So they've put in pipes and they put in water and they put in electricity. Which then implies that they plan for this to be pretty permanent, right? Like, you wouldn't put plumbing into a place that you intend to be temporary. They put plumbing and lights and electricity in here. There's a fan too, so I guess that's ventilation. I think this is permanent. They're gonna But then down here we have like just a pile of crap, basically. It's just a pile of junk that doesn't seem to serve any purpose. I don't know. I don't know. It may. What I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that the permanence, the permanence suggested by the plumbing and the wiring implies that they had a plan to convert this space into something permanent. But given that they had that plan, it looks like the plan wasn't entirely executed because there's nothing permanent inside the space. It's just a bunch of people squatting and begging, and I mean there's a soup kitchen, but the soup kitchen is very temporary, right? This is a makeshift soup kitchen. It's not really a permanently built kitchen. Somebody just kind of cobbled this together out of tables and shelves. Maybe they had a plan and they were halfway through executing the plan and then they just kind of gave up on the plan halfway through. That's possible. That's possible. So it might be that, right, the dust storms start happening. They put this roof over the street to try to keep the dust from completely burying the street. And then, so they tried to do it, but then as time went on, they realized it wasn't going to work, and so then they abandoned it half finished. And now these people, they have nowhere else to go, so they are squatting in this half finished underground street that they have half built. That might be what's happening. Like if I'm reading the architecture, if I'm reading the environment, that is the explanation that I can give for it. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense, this space. So it could, yeah, so it could be like a half-built. I mean, you could kind of like imagine that would make sense, right? When the dust storms first start, maybe they're not as severe, and you think, okay, well, this dust is going to be a problem, but we can solve that problem by covering the street, keeping the dust off the street, and then we can like keep using the street down here. And then after a while, well, no, we were wrong. We were wrong. It doesn't work. It's not good enough. The dust is still gonna destroy the city. We gotta go. We gotta abandon this place. That might be what happened. Oh, let's check this in. Can we look at any apartments back here? So I mean, down here it's in pretty good condition. You see the dust doesn't get down here because the street is covered. And I guess that keeps the dust out. We do have an apartment up here. Let's check the condition of this. So again, you see it's very plain. It's just a plain light green, a lime green wall. The furnishings are very basic, but they're not bad, right? I mean, the bed is like a steel frame bed. The Batista Mining District was always a working class district. These are miners, right? They work in the mines. They're blue-collar, working-class people. But it is fully furnished, right? I mean, you have a full bath and toilet. You have a, you have a fully working kitchen. Oh, there's some wood paneling here. Okay, this is not bad. I mean, most of it is wallpaper out there, but in here, in the dining area, there's a bit of wood paneling. That's kind of nice. He's unconscious. He's just sleeping. Don't worry about him. We have dining table, again very plain, just plain white tablecloth. The chairs are also not ornate in any way, but there is heating, right? Central heating, and a typewriter. Again, a very simple desk, but functional. So this is the, or this was the state of the economy back before the dust storms. Working class, fairly straightforward, nothing too fancy, but not poor, right? Not extravagant, but not poor. And in fact, this apartment has completely avoided the dust, which is kind of remarkable, considering, like, remember, like, some of the buildings closer to the cliff face, they were completely destroyed. So even just a few buildings back, it's protected enough from the dust that It's perfectly livable. Look at this. There's nothing wrong with this. Unfortunately, you know, if you live in a district where half the buildings, or maybe even like 2/3 or 3/4 of the buildings are destroyed, even if your house is not destroyed, you're gonna have a hard time living there, because like everything else is gone. Right, like where are you gonna shop? Where are you gonna buy your food? Who are you gonna work for? Like all the business are gone. Most of the people have moved away, and so even the parts of the city that aren't directly affected by the dust would also be indirectly affected by the fact that the whole district is falling apart. Right, I mean, it's interesting how well preserved that is though, right, compared to, let's say, just across the street. This is just across the street. Why is that building doing so well and this doing so badly? It's literally just on the other side of the street. Alright, so going upstairs back to the upper level of the street. I mean, like nobody's on the surface anymore because it's just dust storms all the time up here. Okay, so we're through that street, and then here, back here we have the overseers, right? You see that logo. In fact, at this point in the street here, they've put some concrete blocks across the street, put some barbed wire on top, and then there would have been a guard here, but I got rid of him. And then we're in hostile territory. So beyond this wall, this makeshift wall, is overseer territory. We can walk up this street there, or there's a staircase up here, which leads to the same place, really. All these buildings are abandoned, I believe. It doesn't look like anybody lives here anymore. There used to be a dentist. There used to be a garden here. This looks abandoned, right? That's probably abandoned. There's a back street here. Let me just check this real quick. Right, so this is Aramis Stilton's mansion. Remember how I said he could afford to cover his entire mansion with this wooden shielding? So this is part of it. It continues around like around the whole thing. And this is a bit of an alleyway. There's nothing down there. We don't need to go down there. Alright, back this way. We kind of came around the long way. So this goes back to the barricade across the street here. We should probably look inside some of these buildings just to check the state of them. Remember the dentist sign? This is the dentist. Or this was the dentist. We have the dentist chair there. We have a little bit of a reception there. And then I guess we used to come up staircases, maybe from back there, but those are closed now. Oh, you notice that this building has no dust on the inside either. So again, like the dentist office, this could have worked. I mean, the dust is not getting in here, right? Not even like from these windows. But again, I mean, if the entire rest of the city is destroyed, then you're not going to have anyone to be your customers. So I guess that's not going to work out. Oh, also the story is that the overseers kicked out all the people who used to live here. So in order to secure their little outpost, they just kicked everybody out. Alright, so here, this building, there's a lot more wood there. That's interesting, isn't it? Let's go up there. The street continues that way, except that it's blocked off by the wooden wall back there. A roadblock. There is a little side staircase that brings up the side of this building. Brothers and sisters, the Abbey of the Everyman. So this is interesting. This building is protected by this wooden shielding. It implies that this building is important, doesn't it? There are no signs left to tell us what this building used to be. And if we look at that sign, it's been covered up. So that would have told us what that is. In the game, this is the Overseer's outpost, but it's pretty obvious that the Overseers took over this building, and this building used to be something other than the Overseer's outpost. So this building is triangular. There is wood shielding on the windy side, although there is some dust on the inside, nevertheless. Down here, a big entryway, a big double height entry space, and then we have a reception. Behind the reception we have a bit of a storage area where a lot of the furniture from the building has been just piled up. So imagine all of this stuff used to be in other parts of the building. Try to imagine how this was, how all this furniture was used. Curious that the elevator comes down to here, because this, you're not supposed to come in here as the public, right? This is behind the reception, and then the elevator goes all the way to the back of the reception, to the storage area. Probably useful for moving things around, but not for public access. This is turned into an interrogation room. There's no furniture left to tell us what this used to be. Right, so from the entry, past the reception, you go up the stairs, and then there's records, a records room, I guess, right, with storage. And then here's the circulation, which is kind of like at the back of the building, staircase and elevator. And then in here, the Abbey, the overseers of the Abbey have turned this into a dormitory with beds. I am not sure what this place used to be before it was turned into dormitories. The lockers, theoretically the lockers can be moved around. But they use, what is this thing? There's a light there. Is this portable? This wooden thing? I guess it is, because it doesn't line up with the windows, right? Okay, so I guess this is all portable furniture that they've moved in here to turn the space into a dormitory. They put a little kitchen thing here. There's no kitchen table, so I guess they just like stand and eat. And then here we have these shelves, which I guess is also movable. The sink would not be movable, right? Because these are bolted to the wall with plumbing. But then everything else is movable. So there's like a triangular room with windows on every side and sinks on one side. I have no idea what this space would have been before it was turned into a dormitory. I couldn't figure it out. Because the sink doesn't make any sense. Without the sink, this could be any sort of space. With the sink, like the sinks are usually in kitchens, toilets, laundries. Like what rooms have sinks in them? So I don't know what the space used to be. A gym, like a workout room? I don't know. I don't know. Alright, up the stairs. We have this. We haven't figured out what this space used to be yet, have we? And I don't think we will just by looking at it. Anyway, over here we have sort of like a storage area, I suppose. And a lot of the furniture has been piled up here. Let me just like try and figure out what this room used to be. No idea. Coming in here, we have an office. This used to be an office. There's like shelves. Actually, those are clothes. Huh. There's a desk here. But those are clothes? Those are miners' uniforms? Maybe? And then back here we have engineering equipment. vice and grinder and sinks and tools. So a bit of a workshop back here. And then over here we have office. Oh, this is like a meeting room, a boardroom. Right, some kind of meeting room. On the other side, there's a raised area with a desk. It looks like a lecture hall of some sort, doesn't it? Right? Some sort of lecture hall. And then here we have the main office for the boss, whoever the boss is. Ah! An old map. This does tell us what this place is. Okay, that's good. Okay, we finally figured out what this place is. United Miners of Karnaca. This is a miners union. This is the union building of the United Miners of Karnaca, of the mining union. I had forgotten where this information was. Okay, this information is here. I mean, look, we came through the whole building almost, all the way up to the main office, and it's only in the main office that we find out what this place is. And that does tell us something. It does tell us that the overseers have been here a very long time, and or they have made an enormous effort to like move all the furniture around so that we can't figure out what the space used to be. And if you like look, remember, like all the furniture is like piled up in storage spaces, so they've moved the furniture around so much that there's no obvious way to identify what the rooms used to be used for. Anyway, it's the mining union, right? And with that information, so this is the office of the union boss. There's much fancier furnishings in here, like wood paneling and everything else. And even the desk is really nice wood. And it's a big office. So this is the boss's office, and then this would be like a meeting room. What is this? A side office. Right? Maybe the secretary's office? Okay, so now that we know this is a mining union, would a mining union have a lecture hall? I guess they would. Maybe this is like upskilling, you know, continuing education or something. They would teach the miners things to help their members. And then over here, remember, there'll be clothes. Maybe they're distributing mining clothes to the workers. And then here they'll be working on mining tools, like fixing the miners' tools. Ah, all of this makes sense now that we know what it is. It's you know, sometimes you can tell what a building is just by looking at the furnishings and the shapes of the rooms and how they're being used. It's curious that I couldn't do that without knowing that it's a mining union. I mean, I already knew that, but I was trying to like find evidence for it. But in the end, I couldn't really find enough evidence to actually figure out what it is until it told us on the actual, like it told us on a board. This is the miners' union. Although having said that, I don't actually know what a union building would have in it. It's not one of the things I studied in architecture school. Anyway, so up the stairs again. Up here we have more office space. I mean, this cool double height atrium thing. Back here we have more tables, more desks. We have more dust up here too, remember? Outside, remember how the wooden shielding didn't go all the way up the building, it only went up like halfway up the building. So the wooden shielding kind of stops down there, I think, although... yeah. So the parts of the building where there is wooden shielding, there's no dust, and then above that there is dust. So I think it is suggested that the wooden shielding actually works. Although, I mean, just kind of thinking about it, I'm not sure how that would keep dust out, but apparently it does. And the parts of the buildings that were not shielded have kind of been buried in dust. This overlooks the main office. It's interesting that, like, this is not a solid wall here. It suggests that there's like a philosophy of connectiveness, of connection between the boss and the workers, right? It's not like the boss is right at the top and completely walled off and then nobody can get to him. No, the boss is kind of like in amongst, I mean he's at one end of the building, but he's kind of in amongst them, like some of the workers are above, some of the workers are below, and then there are no walls between the boss's office and the workers' offices, so it's kind of like this solidarity thing where it's like, oh, I mean, okay, I'm the boss, but actually we're all in this together. I'm kind of working with you and not completely separate. Interesting, like all the spaces are connected, even this space is connected, although I'm not sure about this one, because it connects to the lecture room. If you're giving lectures down there, you would distract the workers, office workers up here, wouldn't you? Like if there were offices down there as well, then this connectedness again is interesting. Like often in office buildings, one of the problems with office buildings is if you have multiple stories, then the person working on this story just kind of goes up the elevator, goes to work, gets on the elevator, goes to lunch, comes back in the afternoon, goes to work, and then goes home, and this person never goes up to the other floor. And likewise, the person working on the other floor goes up the elevator, goes to work, goes to lunch, goes to work, goes home. And the problem is that the people working down here, they never actually meet the people working up here. And so in a business where interaction between your workers can be useful, when you divide your office into multiple floors, you end up in a situation where some of your workers never meet your other workers. Let's say, I mean, okay, let's say like game development, for example. Let's say you have your programmers up here and your artists down here for some reason. And so then your programmers never actually bump into the artists. And you know, the way human interaction works is that a lot of the ideas and a lot of the conversations are kind of like by chance, right? People don't think ahead, oh, I want to talk to the programming guy about this particular level and I have a certain idea about, like maybe at the back of their minds, they're like, okay, well, maybe this will be interesting. But if they never like meet, if they never actually bump into the programmer, it wouldn't occur to them to just say, hey, Bob, remember that part of the game, like can you like do a bit of coding here to make this mechanic work in a different way? Like you have this in the back of your mind, but maybe you don't actually have a conscious thought to actually go talk to the programmer. Whereas if you're working in the same floor, you walk past their desk and you're like, oh, that's right, I have this idea, let's talk to Bob about it. So when you have multiple floors, this is a really long-winded explanation. When you divide your office into multiple floors, the lack of interaction between the people who work on different floors will impede the amount of creativity and the amount of cooperation between the workers in your office, is what I'm trying to say. And it's hard to measure, right? This kind of chance encounter between people who then, oh, hey, I want to talk to Bob about this idea, and then Bob would hear your idea and they're like, actually, it's a really good idea, I can work with this. And then, right, whereas if you don't see them, you just don't talk to them because you never see them, right? So then this sort of thing, the fact that there's like a huge open hole in the floor, means that even though you work on different floors, you can still see them. And if Bob's working down there and you have an idea, you're like working here, oh, I have an idea, let's talk to Bob. You just turn around, hey Bob! You're just gonna yell down to the other floor, hey Bob, I have an idea. So this allows the two floors to be connected. This is a really long and elaborate and overly colorful explanation for why this is really interesting in office design. This is probably something that you're never gonna find useful. But if you're designing an office building, look, I'm serious about this. When you're designing an office building, being able to get past the isolation of putting people on different floors, being able to connect the workers on different floors actually helps a lot with the business. It actually helps a lot. And it's not something that's easy to measure, and it's not something that people think about all the time, but it's surprisingly important and surprisingly productive. Okay, that's it. I don't want to go any further into that. But anyway, like connections like this, even stuff like this. I mean, you would think, okay, you shouldn't bother the boss too much, but maybe you should. Maybe you should bother the boss, right? Maybe you should yell at people on the other side of the office to share ideas. Alright. Coming back outside. So this was the stairwell, right? We can't go any further up because the game blocked it. I think there's actually more floors up there. Over on this side, something strange has happened. There's more spaces out here, but you notice there's no door here. Right, this is not a door. If we come through, we will find that there is more spaces. There's a bit of a seat there. I mean, there's the boss's office again. There's a hallway, and then there's more office space here. Interesting that this is covered in dust. I'm not sure how the dust got in here because the wind is blowing from that direction. So you'd think that if the dust is in here, the dust would also be in there, but it's not. There's no dust down there. Somehow the dust got through all of that to get... I don't know how this worked. But there's no connection between this side of the building and all these offices. This office. There's no connection between this and the stairwell. And that doesn't make any sense. This used to be a doorway, okay. But there's no further doorway from that point to the stairwell. I think this is an oversight. Right, because there's no doors here. This is not a door. I think this should be a door. There should be a door here, because otherwise you can't get in there. You can't. Alright, so that's probably a mistake. And this is the Overseer's Outpost. So it's a mining union building that's been turned into an Overseer's Outpost. I just noticed the sign there that says private. So if it's private past this point, does that mean that this is public? This is public? It's open to the public. It's got a sink on the side. I don't know what this would be. I still don't know what this room would be. What would be a room that is open to the public in a union building? I mean, it could be a lot of things, but there's no clear evidence that this is anything. Shops? Do they sell souvenirs here? I don't know. It could be a lot of things. Okay, let's go back outside. Yeah, like the furniture, if there was furniture back there, it could probably tell us what it was, but all the furniture has been moved around, as we said. So back out here, all these buildings are abandoned, I think. Or at least they're shut to us, we can't get inside any of them. And then down here, these shops are abandoned, so everything is doing pretty poorly. There is another makeshift barricade here, and then through here we're back in neutral territory, right? So back there is the Overseer's territory. Actually, should I look at this wooden shielding again, or is there... No, there's nothing too remarkable. Although, yeah, no, this does correspond to the dust. So up on the... So this is first floor, the dormitories. And then that's... The third floor is the boss's office. And then above that, the wood shielding doesn't reach that far. And then that's where the dust began to accumulate. So the wood shielding does stop the dust. Alright, so there's a bit of neutral territory between the overseers area and the gang area. I just want to... Oh, don't spam buttons. I just want to show you the map again, just to make sure you understand where we are. So here's the Batista District. We came up the street here, so this is the mining union office, and we went down this street and now we're at this point. So there's a bit of a neutral area. The overseers took over this space, and then the gang has taken over this space. Okay. So here, what do we see? Most of the shops are closed and abandoned. What does that say? They have merchandise, apparently, but this doesn't seem to be open. That's all abandoned, except this shop is still open. Okay, there's nothing... Okay, that's all shuttered up. There is a shop here that is open. The window's broken, but that's my fault, I broke it. In the game, it's not broken yet. This is a Silvergraph studio. Silvergraph studio, or a photography studio. These are Silvergraphs, by the way. They use silver to take photos. Back in the old days. Right, very cool. Silvergraph studio. There is a photography studio back here. There's a dark room, and then beyond that there's a bit of a studio. So I guess these are all the props, right? You set up the props and you take a photo. Interesting. It looks like the Silvergraph studio is still in business, although the wallpaper is not doing too well. Everything's peeling. But it appears to still be in business. Right, so maybe like 80% of the shops are closed and then 20% are still opening. Here, we have some apartments up here. Again, the wallpaper's not doing too well, but the floor's okay. Right? It's not great, but it's not terrible, the condition. This apartment is still occupied. We've got a pipe going out there. That's the chimney from the stove. The furnishings, again, if you look at the wallpaper, it's plain wallpaper. The furnishings are fairly basic, but functional, right? We have a bath, we have a toilet, we have a basin, we have heating. We have all the pieces. This is a little curious. The bed's there, although I'm not sure that's meant to be the bedroom. There's artwork. I'm not sure if you can tell, but oh, you can kind of left arm, right arm. So the person who lives here is a tattoo enthusiast. And they have a lot of paints and things, and they kind of draw their designs and then they do their tattoos. They've set up themselves a little office back here. Some pretty interesting tattoo drawings. Right. So, I mean, this is a curious way to arrange. Oh, is she... I mean, is she drawing that? Is she drawing the potted plant? Not really, right? She's drawing this stuff. So they've turned the lounge area into a sort of art studio. I think this little nook is supposed to be where the bed goes. So this is like the bedroom nook, but it's been turned into an office. And then the other side of the room, which is supposed to be something else, probably dining area, has been turned into the bedroom. So they've arranged the furniture a little bit, but all the pieces are still there. Right, so that's one of the apartments. Again, what can we say about the apartment? This is a working class district, so it's quite plain, right? All the floors are plain, the walls are plain, the furnishings are plain, but it is fully furnished. It does have everything in it. It does have everything that an apartment is supposed to have. So they are modest, but not deprived, right? There's no deprivation. They're not lacking anything, but it is modest. So they're not rich, but they're not destitute. So we can say that about the economy of this place. There's one more apartment, but we can't walk up there. We do have to use our... Oh my god, that's the wrong thing. We have to use our magic to get up there. So this side, curiously, there's more interesting furniture and fancier furniture, it seems. This person... Oh, she's unconscious there. They were doing accounting work, I think. Look, there's a cash register there and a typewriter there. I believe these are accountants, and they were, you know, doing math for a business somewhere. Maybe for the mines, even. Slightly fancier wallpaper, look at that. And slightly fancier kitchen, right? There's more bench space. There's more chairs. Why are there so many chairs in this house, actually? So the furniture is... I mean, can you tell? I don't know if you can tell. And then there's wood paneling back there. It's just slightly more... slightly wealthier, slightly more decorated than the other apartment. The apartment is like slightly plainer. Can you see that? Or is that... Or is that not obvious? That's pretty obvious, right? There's more stuff on the walls. There's more like pictures and drawings and books. Right, so this apartment looks slightly more expensive than the other one. There's only one bed. There are two women. There are two women out there working, and there's only one bed back here. Right, make of that what you will. Bathroom. And we can't go out the front door because it's blocked off in the game. So let's jump back out the window. So back here in this neutral district, people still live here. Like, remember, if we walk down the main street, like if we remember the other side of the district, it's completely destroyed. And then, like, the main street, that's mostly destroyed. Like, there are a few shops, but they're not doing very well. And it looks like most of the buildings are abandoned, and there are people, like, kind of homeless people squatting underneath the streets. And then here, even in this part of the city, most of the shops are abandoned. And yet, there are still people who live like this, right? So not everything's abandoned, not everything's destroyed. There are still people who are relatively well off in this district. I find that quite interesting, actually. Like the dentist is completely abandoned, for example. I'm just kind of like trying to figure out how is it that some people still manage to be okay in a district that is otherwise completely destroyed and taken over by overseers and taken over by gangs. Maybe these people are like, they have special protection or something? I don't know. Like, this seems too normal in this district. It doesn't seem like you can have such a normal life in this district. Anyway, let's just keep that in mind and keep going. So then, we come down here, on the other side of the neutral district, we get into the gang territory. No, it's not the islands. I keep trying to remember what the name of the gang is. This street is blocked off, so we can't go this way. And then through here, we have another gate in the middle of the road. So even before the dust storms, there was a lot of security and potentially oppression. Alright, and now we are back. So this was the main entrance to the district, by the way. Let me just come back here. Remember this? So there's the main street, right? And then on this side, remember this? The Crone's Hand Saloon? So this leads back here. That's where we are. This is the front of a building that no longer exists. So there used to be a building here. You can see like what remains of it. Like there used to be like a roof there, and then another wall here. So there used to be a building here, but it's gone now. Not sure what happened to it. The facade is still there. It's being propped up by this frame, but... So if you imagine there used to be a building here, although I'm not sure how big the footprint of it is. Is this the footprint? I guess this is the footprint here. So it didn't used to be very big anyway. It used to be this big. Like from that corner to that corner there, and then to there. So back here there's a bit of a square, I guess. Some people have put their furniture out onto the street. And then here we have the Crone's Hand Saloon. What does that say? The Crone's Hand Saloon, terrace at the back. And there's a little arrow pointing it towards the back. There is a door here, but let's go to the terrace at the back first. Right, so we come down this little alleyway. It's kind of a... There is a gate here. It's a little unwelcoming, isn't it? It's like if you don't know where you're going, you wouldn't walk down a narrow alleyway like this. But if you do know what you're doing, you would know that the Crone's Hand Saloon has a little private courtyard in the back, which is actually kind of quite nice. I mean, look at this place. Oh, very nice. So this courtyard is protected from the storms, from the dust storms. It's also protected from the sun, mostly. I mean, they put the shading, the canvas over there up there to shade from the sun. And you know, it's kind of nice. They have a bar here. You can kind of sit around, get a drink. Right, it's protected. There's music. They might play music later on. The game's a little strange about when they start playing music. There's something quite Mediterranean about this, right? What do I mean by that? So in the Mediterranean, where it's hotter, or even like in the Middle East, but this is more Mediterranean than Middle East, like you would have tall buildings to provide shade from the sun. Oh, and they start playing music. To provide shade from the sun so that it doesn't get hot, right? So the buildings on each side keeps the interior of the courtyard cool, and so that you can kind of enjoy a cool outdoor space in an otherwise hot climate. So that's what spaces like these do. And then you have like fancy tiles like these. The music does also add to the Mediterranean feel. With a bar here, nothing too special about the bar. I think this is concept art. This is concept art of the city. And then up the stairs we have some balconies. Some balcony seating. Oh, this is kind of nice. I mean, imagine getting a meal here, right? It's not bad. The dust does not get down here. You can see the dust up there, but it doesn't come in here. Very nice. And again, like the tiles, look at the tiles on the window frame. It's very Mediterranean. So in hotter climates, you often have a lot of stone and tiles because the thermal mass. What is thermal mass? Some materials can absorb heat more than other materials. So stone, for example, has more thermal mass than wood. So in a cold climate, you would use wood because the wood is basically like cellulose, but it's got a lot of air inside the cellulose, so it provides insulation. So wood provides fairly good insulation from the cold, whereas stone doesn't. Like stone has a lot of thermal mass, so it takes a lot of heat energy to warm up the stone, and then when it gets cold, the heat energy will radiate back out of the stone. And so in like a Mediterranean climate where it might get very hot during the day, but it's significantly colder at night, then you want a lot of thermal mass to absorb the heat during the day and then release the heat back out during the night. And so in in hotter climates, even in the Middle East, you would have like massive buildings, as in like a lot of stone or brick or concrete. So you like a lot of thermal mass to kind of absorb and then release the heat, so that it doesn't get quite as hot during the day, and then it gets slightly warmer at night as the heat comes back out of the stonework. So like having, for example, tiles for window frames. Like, if you live in a temperate climate, it's kind of weird. Like tile window frames. Don't you have wood window frames? What is that? No, but like tile window frames again, because it's got more thermal mass than the wood, and so then in the Mediterranean climate, this would feel nicer. I mean, there is wood back there as well inside, actually holding the window in place. But like if you go up to the, oh, we can't go up from here, can we? But a lot of like tile roofs and stone walls, and you don't want metal too much, because metal also absorbs heat. But when the sun shines on the metal, it gets really, really, really hot, and so it gets really uncomfortable. Like we wouldn't lean on like a hot metal railing. So yeah, so like a lot more stone, a lot of thick stone, thermal mass is what you find in nearer to the equator, I guess. And this really has that feel to it. The inside here, this is just a room. There's no bed in here. I think this is just like an office. Again, the wallpaper is peeling. And not too remarkable. Okay, let's go inside the Crone's Hand Saloon, which is in here. On the ground floor, we have a bit of a storage space. And a kitchen? I mean, the cleaver and cooking and sinks. Although, if this is the kitchen, and if it's a saloon, you would kind of expect a bigger, or at least more stovetops, because if you're cooking for multiple tables of guests, you would need more cooktops, right? So that's a little strange. Yeah, you would expect more cooktops, but there's a lot of like open space and only one small cooktop. Not sure if this makes sense for a saloon kitchen, but at least it does have a kitchen, right? This is the front door, by the way. Remember this? So there was this area, and then we went down the side alleyway. So if you come in the front door, I guess it's the front door. On one side there's a kitchen, and then there's a staircase. Up the staircase. Fancy wood paneling, interesting. In here we have a room. No idea what this room used to be, because all the furniture has been moved away. What kind of rooms would be in the saloon? Just like seating and lounge areas, right? We can see that there's a locker here, although I don't know if this is permanent, but there's a sink there, that's permanent, and there's a toilet here. This almost feels like an apartment, and in fact somebody is using this as an apartment space. There's a bed back here, right? So there's like a seat, a bed, storage, and then there's even a bath and a toilet. So this is an apartment, right? Or at least it's like some sort of guest room. Some sort of room where a person can stay. It could be a hotel room, but there's only one of these rooms in the building. So is this a hotel? It's a saloon. Would the saloon also have like rooms where people can stay overnight? I don't know. And if that is one of those rooms, then what is this space? I can't figure this out. Up here, this is the seating again. Okay, let's keep going upstairs. If we keep going upstairs, there is this. which is kind of like a dining room, or is it a meeting room? But like if this was a house, then the dining room would make sense, but this is a saloon. And then back here there's a sort of an office. I guess a saloon could have an office. This turned into a shrine. This used to be a toilet, I think. Again, like I can't figure out why there would be a room like this. Private meetings? VIP room? Maybe it's just like a VIP room? Could be a VIP room. Where, you know, important people have meetings. Could be. Here, like this is storage, I guess. Although there's a sink here. Laundry? No, they wouldn't. No, the laundry wouldn't be on the 3rd floor. I have no idea. I can't make any sense of this. There is a balcony up here. It's a private balcony. It's not directly connected to the terrace down there, but it's still inside this really nice enclosed space. And you do get to enjoy the atmosphere in private. Look at this. There's a seat here. All right, very nice. And then there's more staircase. If we continue up the staircase, we will find that the last 3 stories are just completely gone. What happened to the rest of this building? I don't know. Look, I'll be honest with you guys. Let's be honest. I feel like they didn't know what to do with this building. It seemed like none of the rooms really made any sense. Like, what rooms would a saloon have? None of the rooms underneath here seem to fit very well with the saloon. And then the rest of the saloon is just not even here. Look, there's not even rooms here. They just remove the floors and then it's... It's like the level designer just kind of put stuff in and then I don't know what I'm doing. And then they just stopped doing it and then they just took out the floors and okay, there's nothing there and we don't have to deal with it. Like, I don't wanna criticize people because they obviously put a lot of work into this. I just don't understand this building, is what I'm saying. And how is this building still standing? It doesn't even have a roof anymore. So in the real world, if your building doesn't have a roof, it falls apart very quickly because once it rains and you collect rain on the inside, everything starts rotting, everything starts falling apart, and then the building, as long as the roof is intact, the building is mostly okay. Mostly okay. Once the roof is gone and then it rains a few times, like your building's done. It's gone. Demolish the thing, rebuild the whole thing from scratch. You can't keep it, right? So the fact that the roof is gone, but the other floors below still seems okay, is something that's, unless you are in a place that never rains, right? If it never rains here, you can get away with this. But in any part of the world that rains ever, like every time it rains, the water would just flood, let's just kind of leak into the lower floors, and then there'll be mold everywhere, and it'll be uninhabitable. Yeah, this I don't know what to make of this building. I honestly don't. I don't know what's going on. Superficially, there's a building here, but I think when you like try to read more closely into it, I don't know what it is. But the terrace back here is really nice. For some reason, this is really nice. I really like this. I really like this. Like a little private courtyard in the back where you can get a drink and listen to music, and you're protected from the sun and you're protected from the wind. It's just really nice. I like this. I like this. I like this. It's nice. Alright, let's get back outside. So that is pretty much the entire Dust District. There are like a few things, like a few nooks and crannies. Let me just go into a few more of these just to like make sure we're not missing anything. So if we come in here, there's another apartment. It seems to be abandoned, right? There is a toilet and bath back here. And they've put a bed here. And then there's a bit of a lounge here. It's pretty nice, right? And then there's like out the window. There's no kitchen. Kitchen could be back there, right? Maybe there's a kitchen and then the front door. So you have an apartment here. There's no dust. Interesting that there's no dust. I guess we're far enough back that the other buildings are blocking the dust. Oh, wait. The dust storms are here. Let's see if the dust storm... No, come on. Wait. Let's wait for this. Yeah, wait, what? No, the dust is blowing in here. How is there no dust inside? Look at this. This seems inconsistent. Shouldn't there be a lot of dust in here? Anyway, it's implied that this is in relatively good condition. But maybe it shouldn't be. I don't think this should be in good condition. I think this room should be in much worse condition, actually. Plus, it literally is just open to the dust. Alright, so there's that little apartment there. Back here we have another building. This is condemned. Seized, it says. It's not really seized. Condemned due to infestation is more like it. Blood flies again, if you're wondering. Oh, look at this little painting. Or is it a photograph? There's like a store there. This doesn't even look like Karnaca. I guess back there it does. This is like this is a part of the city that we never go to. Anyway, bloodfly infestation. But if we look past the infestation, again we have plain single color wallpaper, which is modest but not awful. Furniture is pretty good actually. Look, basin, toilet, bath. We have a bit of a lounge here, a nice chair. Really decent furniture, a fancy lounger. Oh, this is a bedroom, okay, right? There's a bed there. This is actually kind of a nice apartment. Where's the kitchen though? Oh, up here we have a dining, and then we have a kitchen. Oh, look at that! It's a 2-story apartment with all the pieces, even a harp. Surprising. And look at that, all the chairs are turned towards the harp, so somebody was performing. I mean, given how plain the wallpaper is, and how plain the walls are, and how plain the floors are, they have a harp in here. Isn't that interesting? And in fact the chairs are quite nice. So again, not extravagant, but also not poor, right? They're doing pretty well financially. Right up until it got overrun by butterflies. Right, so if it weren't for the bloodflies, the people living here were doing quite well. Yeah. Yeah, so okay, let me just go back out to the entrance. And let's summarize. So that was the Dust District. To summarize, the Dust District was a working class district for miners, and in fact the whole district was dominated by the miners' union building. It used to be quite okay. I mean, they were never extravagantly wealthy, but judging by the furnishings and the interiors, they were doing alright. I mean, they weren't poor. I mean, they weren't rich, but they weren't poor. But the district has now been completely destroyed by dust storms. Well, not completely. It's been like 80% destroyed by dust storms and bloodflies. Curiously, some people are still living really well at the back, like where the dust doesn't quite get to, at the back of the district. They're still doing okay, and maybe it's implied that, you know, I mean, we're only visiting like a part of the city. Maybe we're visiting like the worst part, the part that's completely exposed to the dust. Maybe like further back, everything's normal. That's possible. And maybe the apartments we saw that seemed strangely normal, maybe those are the beginnings of where the city becomes normal again. Because you imagine we are on the side of a cliff here, right? And the dust like comes down the valley. So I'm guessing the valley is pretty much destroyed by dust. In fact, if we look down there, is that dust? It is. So that street down there is completely piled up with dust, up to like the 3rd floor or something crazy like that. So everything in the valley is just destroyed by dust. And then everything up the side of the valley, so on the exposed side of the valley, I guess it's also destroyed by dust. And it is, like, so this is destroyed by dust. And the buildings in here, like some of them are destroyed by dust. But the further back you go, the better it gets, right? There's more buildings blocking the dust until you get to a point where it's actually quite normal at the very back. And then maybe beyond that point, everything is normal. But then not only is the district half or like mostly destroyed by dust, it's also been taken over by a gang on one side and then the overseers on the other side. So that's also disastrous. And those guys have kicked what remains, the remaining residents of the district out into the street where they're holding up under the streets. What a disaster. Yeah, so some people are destitute and pretty desperate, to be honest, and then other people are actually kind of okay. And it doesn't seem like the okay people are helping the destitute people either. It seems like they're just ignoring each other. Yeah. So I think this is as bad as Karnaca gets, right? So this is like the worst part of Karnaca. And I mean, just wait for the storm to... It's really loud. So this is more or less the worst part of Karnaca. And in a way, it's self-inflicted, because like the dust storms are the result of 1, excessive mining, and 2, not managing the consequences of the mining. The dust is coming out of the silver mines, I think, and I think there used to be devices to control the dust, and they've just been ignored and they don't work anymore. So it's a disaster that could have been avoided, but it wasn't avoided because they needed more silver and they just let the dust destroy the city in the process. And the irony is that this is the mining district. So it's the miners who are working the mines that are producing the dust that then destroys their own homes. Isn't that tragic? It's so tragic. But of course it's not the workers who decide to mine excessively. It's the Duke who are ordering the miners to do more mining in order to have enough silver to fund his war, but then the mining is destroying the miners. Oh, what a disaster. What an absolute disaster. It's it's not only is it a disaster, but it is a disaster that, you know, it could have been avoided, but it wasn't avoided. So it's super tragic, right? Okay, so this is the end of this video. We've seen the whole dust district. In the next video, as I said, we're going to go into Aramis Stilton's house, which is beyond this door. Alright, so in the next video, we will be past this door. I will see you there.